I think when we take a look at attempting to expose people or their credentials, you're walking a very fine line there. At one point, it's looking as if you're attacking people, attacking their background, attacking their stories. On the other side of the coin is, are we supposed to allow these people to continue to spread these untruths without some sort of commentary? And I know Stan has taken some flack for Bob Lazar. I've taken flack for a number of those as well. But I think that we have an obligation in the UFO field, when we learn something like that, to share that information, because if we don't, and the skeptics learn it, then it becomes one more black eye for us. And I take a look at the Project Disclosure and Dr. Stephen Greer. I know of at least 4 people on his list of insiders who were not. That the tales they tell today are not backed up by fact. Now, am I supposed to sit back and say, well, we're all a great ufological community and we should embrace all of this? Or should I say, I know for a fact that this story is bogus and we should eliminate it, because if we don't, it's going to discredit all of the work we do. And so we come into a very difficult decision to make on what we should expose and what we shouldn't expose. And I think part of it also is sort of an irritation that somebody can come out of nowhere, claim credentials they do not deserve, suggest research they have not conducted, and elevate themselves into the position of a spokesman for the ufological community, which they shouldn't be. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to expose those people so that you can make a rational decision. I mean, we can look at the UFO field, and there's some very highly credentialed people in the field. You know, John Mack. I mean, gee whiz, he teaches at Harvard. He's got a PhD an MD. He's a psychiatrist. He's got a Pulitzer Prize. Here's a very well-credentialed individual. That should tend to underscore his credibility. Doesn't mean he's right about everything, but should underscore his credibility. Then we look at some of the other people who are claiming to have doctoral degrees, advanced education, military experience that they don't have. Why should we listen to those people if they're going to lie about that sort of material? What else are they lying about? What else should we believe about them? And I think before ufology is elevated into a real science, a real search for the truth, we in the community are going to have to eliminate those people. And I confess, I don't understand why, when you provide the evidence for people, they reject it out of hand. I argued with a guy for an hour at a MUFON conference about Gerald Anderson. I showed him the faked phone bill. I showed him the real phone bill. I showed him the letters. I showed him the documents. I said, this to me tells me that Gerald Anderson's lying. And he looked me right in the eye and he says, how do you know the government didn't fake his phone bill to make him look bad? Well, the answer is, because we got the phone bill from Southwestern Bell, we got a copy of the phone bill from Anderson, they're not the same, and it's clearly Anderson's typewriter that was used to create the bogus phone bill. That's how we know. But here was a guy who so wanted to believe Gerald Anderson was telling the truth, regardless of the evidence that we presented, said, how do you know the government didn't do it? And that's always the fallback position. My credentials don't exist because the government eradicated them. Crapola. If you were to call the University of Iowa today, and they said, no, Kevin Randle never got a degree here, I could show you my diploma. I could show you many of the grade reports. I could even show you some of the documentation from the college. I can prove that I went to that university. And yet when these other people claim degrees that they don't have, and they say the government eliminated it, they can present absolutely nothing, nor do they even attempt to. They say, well, I'm not going to belittle myself to prove this. If you don't want to believe me, fine. That to me should be a red flag, or that to anybody should be a red flag, that the person's not telling the truth. Because the first thing you do when you're maligned that way is provide the documentation. And I've done that myself. Some guy was going to write an expose on me, proving that I had no military career and I'd lied about my rank. And I sent him documentation proving it, including a letter that I'd just gotten from the Air Force addressed to Captain Randle. And I said, okay, now if you go with that article that you know is not true, I can prosecute you for malicious liable, because you know the truth and you went ahead and published it anyway. And that to me tells me something. When you have the evidence to prove your point, you present it. You don't fall back on this holier than thou attitude. And if you don't have the evidence, if you're making it up, then it's I'm not going to bring myself down to that level. So you look at all of that sort of thing, and I think again we have to expose those people who have come into ufology because they think it's an easy way to make a buck. They think it's an easy way to earn the spotlight. It's an easy way to gather some followers. And if we don't expose them, when the skeptics or the debunkers expose them, we're all going to look bad.